All right, I want you guys to participate in an exercise with me, and it's wiping the slate clean. I know it's a cliche, but we absolutely have to do that with the Texans offense and with our beloved Bobby Slowik, okay? And I'm going to do this. First things first, let's get this out of the way. Hey, Bobby, are you going to be taking that Jets interview?
I have no idea. That's not even allowed this week, so that's far from anywhere on my radar.
Yeah, look, a lot of times coaches would be lying through their teeth when they say something like that. I think Bobby knows the situation he's in. I don't think he probably expects to get an offer, and he might demur on even taking the interviews this year because he's got work to do in establishing himself as an offensive coordinator. So let's go through a few of his answers from his press conference heading into this wildcard playoff game versus the Chargers, who have a very good defense. First question was, hey, how are you going to flip that switch and get the offense, humming or clicking headed into the playoffs?
And I would say, like the last 3 weeks in particular, we've really honed in on what we think we need to do in both areas, the run and the pass game. Really all the way across the board that we think fits us as a group and who we have out there, and our identity as a team that we can really press forward with. But then that takes time to even grow into that, and as we work through some things, even the last 3 weeks, our emphasis beyond that was we got to do everything we can to start to get hot. And that's really all it takes is if you get hot as an offense, especially around this time of year, that's a really good thing for your team and your organization.
Yeah. Get hot, Texans offense. Let your hair down. Take off the glasses. Gyrate your hips a little bit. The last 3 weeks, it's interesting that you'd say, hey, they figured some things out the last 3 weeks. It has not been an offensive outpouring, a deluge of points scored in the last few weeks. I think that when he talks about the guys they have on the field and in the run game specifically, Titus Howard at left guard is a good thing, ultimately, for this offensive line and the way it is this year. And I think Titus has done some really good things at left guard. He's had some blemishes as well, but he is playing out of position. But I think the combination of Laremy Tunsil, who's trying to be a more complete football player. It comes in fits and starts. He's always been a brilliant pass protector. He's trying to be a better run blocker, and we've seen evidence of it. I think there's times where he's working alongside Titus where it looks like the real deal. And then some of the other things they've done in the run when they get the tight ends involved on whams and gap scheme stuff, I think there's something that they can maybe lean into, and I don't expect them to all of a sudden become a Saquon Barkley type affair. But I think there's potential there to have at least a credible run game, which helps set up the pass game. Obviously, the old cliches. And look, if we got real football nerdy about this, we could say, hey, you don't actually have to run the ball well to set up the play action. You do need to be committed to the run, and the defense has to respect your ability to run. And for the vast duration of the season, defenses just haven't respected the ability of the Texans to run. So there's just zero urgency to get up to the line of scrimmage. Guys can just stay back in coverage and play the pass. So Titus Howard at left guard, Laremy Tunsil being really engaged in the run game. Again, I'm not promising fireworks, but if there is going to be a reason that you should have wiped the slate clean, that's something that I'm allowing myself to be cautiously optimistic about. What does Bobby see when he looks at this defense?
Yeah, I mean, they really got good players at every level of the defense. I know the ends in particular, they got 4 that are all really good. Obviously, Bosa and Khalil have been good for a very long time, played a lot of football. And it shows on tape, constant pressure, constant impact in the run game and what they do to edges. But then Derwin James and what they do with him and all the different places he shows up on the field. I mean, he's around the line of scrimmage. He's in deep defense. He's active in the pass game. He's a really good blitzer. I mean, they do a great job moving him around, using him as a weapon in their defensive scheme, and then making sure that they can isolate their edge rushers and really roll all 4 out there to create problems for you.
Yeah, now remember everything I said about how awesome it was that Titus is playing left guard and there's some hope there? Okay, this is true. Everything Bobby said. The edge rush for the Chargers is the biggest headache when it comes to the pass rush. And Blake Fisher has had some really good moments, but he also plays like a rookie at times. So they got to figure out ways to help Blake Fisher out at times. And then I feel like every single interview I've seen from a Texans coach or offensive player this week, a guy has brought up Derwin James unprompted. So it's obviously a focal point in their meetings, as it should be. Derwin James is playing as well as he ever has in this Minter defense. And it's a classic case of, hey, you got to know where he is all the time, but also you got to remember that you got 10 other guys to take care of too. So when it comes to setting the protections, when it comes to making adjustments by CJ and by the wide receivers, a constant awareness of where Derwin James is and what is the way in which he would F up your day. Just take care of that. Just be sure he doesn't F up your day. It's kind of the equivalent of when J.J. Watt was in his prime, and good offenses would approach those games like, hey, we're going to put 4 to 6 hands on him every single play, and we're going to be sure that J.J. Watt doesn't ruin our day. Try like hell not to have Derwin James ruin your day. He's still going to make life uncomfortable. Just don't let him come in and steal your wife and your groceries and leave you alone to raise the kids. Don't do that. Don't let Derwin James do that. Next question was by Luis Garcia of KHOU, and I couldn't quite hear it, but I know that it was something about the outside noise and comments by people like Rex Ryan, who said that the Chargers basically have a bye this week.
Yeah, what people say outside of this building really, that's not really something we hone in on, focus on. We're very much self-reflection type unit and really self-inspired, and that's how we go. That's how we go about everything, So we know what this week means to us. We know the challenge we have in front of us is one heck of a defense. I mean, they're number one in points. They're top 5 in like every good situational statistic that there is. We're extremely explosive. Like I've said that really, if there's one thing we hang our hat on without a doubt, like we got playmakers out there that can take a ball and go 20 yards any given play. And we got to clean up the in-betweens.
And that was a long answer. I chopped it up a little bit. He actually had a better transition in between talking about the defense and about how the Texans are really explosive. We're going to address that in a little bit because if there's one thing the Chargers are good at, it's limiting explosive plays. As far as the outside noise goes, I'm torn on this because it's a different era. I retired right as social media was becoming a thing. I think I might have thought about getting a MySpace page later in my career or something, but that's how old I am. But I mean, it's hard to find the right balance in putting a chip on your shoulder because as soon as you open the door to bulletin board material and everything, it just the floodgates open. If you ever tried to have a healthy social media diet, it's really, really hard not to let somebody connive their way into your brain. So the approach by D'Amico has been like, hey, we don't listen to bulletin board material, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And though great coaches like Bill Belichick and others in the past have leaned into using bulletin board material, probably the best strategy. And look, Rex is gonna Rex. Rex says a lot of stuff, and he knows how to keep the producers happy. This next answer, I cut it up a little bit again, but basically talking about what the Chargers do well, really well defensively, and why it's so hard to play them.
They do a really good job making it where you can't get a beat on what they're doing before the ball snapped. I mean, they do a really good job keeping things in front of them and making sure that they don't give up explosives. So, all
right, so in speaking academically about this, Bobby pointed out that he kind of looks at this as a Baltimore Ravens tree of defenses, and that doesn't make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. The part where, man, coming to disguising exactly what they're going to do, going back to the Texans playing Baltimore in the playoffs last year and then in the regular season this year. And then if I were to go to a similar defense that disguises really well, the Minnesota Vikings don't let you know what they're doing. They'll play a bunch of zone, but then when they blitz the hell out of you and confuse you. That's the challenge, and that's on CJ, the offensive line, the wide receivers, running backs. I'll name every position on the team. That's really hard when you've got shifting sands in front of you and a picture that's really hard to diagnose. This part, it just flat out comes down to, all right, man, sometimes they just got to take advantage of the moments when they're right. Because good offenses, when they play against defenses like this that disguise really well, they get fooled. And they end up with bad plays versus coverages that they misdiagnosed. You just got to really take advantage of the moments that you do get it right. Take advantage of your opportunities when you have them, because they do a good job of limiting the opportunities, like the explosive plays, keeping everything in front of them. When we saw Nico last week being used on an end around, being used on some shorter stuff, Yes, more of that. Nico being used all over the field, and then Deontay Johnson is the big X factor, as well as Mechie and Hutchinson. But in terms of explosiveness and being able to take advantage and get run after the catch, Deontay's just on a different level athletically than the other receivers on the team, other than Nico Collins. So Deontay's a big X factor if we want to. This week, in my opinion, if you really want to get a credible performance out of the offense. Last one I'll play here is Bobby being asked a question about, hey, how do you get better in the red zone? Because the Chargers are a really good red zone defense. The Texans are one of the worst red zone offenses in the league.
You got to start with running the ball in the red zone. Like most of the good red zone offenses run the ball in the red zone. And that's usually because at the end of the day in the red zone, you got to keep pressing forward. Like statistically, if you lose any yards at any time in the red zone, your touchdown percentage plummets. And that's been something we've had to battle this year without question. And that includes penalties, playing clean football. Like there's been a lot of self-inflicted wounds when we've gotten down there that we know that we can definitely clean up and be better at. And if we can run the ball when we're down there, we've been very successful in games in the red area.
Yeah, this ain't rocket science, man. You got to be able to run down there. Don't hurt yourself. And we've seen the Texans hurt themselves a lot in the red zone. This is where I'll go back to, man, if they can hang their hat on just a few simple things in the run game and at the very least get positive yardage there and close that gap between the line of the scrimmage and the goal line, then yeah, I think they can be a better offense. But this has got to be one of those magical moments where, man, all right, nobody expects it, and you haven't really proven that you can do it before. But all those positive things that we're focusing on, more of those. I don't even need to or expect them to eliminate a whole bunch of the negatives. But if you can just turn several drives in a game into positive ones, or at least getting a couple of first downs or whatever it might be, and play more complementary football, there's a chance. And then as most of you who subscribe to this channel know, my hopes for the Texans team in this game is really relying on the Texans defense, their ability to create turnovers, especially at NRG Stadium. So getting excited for this. We're inside 48 hours, are we? Yes, we are. I did that math in my head. I'm Seth Payne, played for the Texans a long time ago. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, and everybody have an awesome time watching this game.